We haven't talked about oil and gas for a while, even though it's one of my favorite subjects. I wrote 2 books about it, Ethical Oil, The Case for Canada's Oil Sands, and Groundswell, The Case for Fracking. I love those books. I love getting to know the science and technology behind each miraculous method. I love meeting the people who are the champions of the project. I love seeing how it improved the prosperity of those communities that embraced it. And I even love fighting back against the antis, the anti-oil sands, anti-frackers who oppose them. But alas, the last 2 years, the crisis of the lockdowns and now forced vaccines and mass firings, segregation, have pushed almost every other conversation aside. As you know, Sheila Gunn Reid used to attend global warming conferences held by the UN around the world, crowdfunded by our viewers to travel there, our viewers who wanted to hear the other side of the story. Although the cities where these conferences were held sound like exotic vacation spots, Marrakesh and Madrid, for example, Sheila, of course, worked around the clock. It was the tens of thousands of climate lobbyists and bureaucrats who were having the 5-star meals and luxury accommodations and private jets, etc. Sheila, as you know, was banned from UN conferences after her first one because she dared to ask prickly questions. I mean, remember this one? At a conference lecturing us about wasting water, they literally watered the desert to keep the dust off the shoes of the politicians.
Every morning, this is my favorite part. Every morning, a little truck comes by and waters the ground so that there's no dust getting on the shoes of the fancy people in the middle of the desert. And these are the people who, behind closed doors, are writing policies to make me flush my toilet only half the time.
And then by accident, Sheila discovered that the electric car charging stations were fake.
My team and I have been at COP22 now for 2 full days, and on both days we noticed these little electric car chargers, and both days we noticed that nobody was using them. So we thought we'd hang out for a little bit and see if anybody's actually using them or if they're just for show.
Yeah, Sheila asked too many questions. They didn't allow her back after that. But that was actually a blessing in disguise. You see, what happens inside these conferences is scripted and managed and spun. You don't actually learn anything other than the government's talking points, which we already know. But outside, free to poke around, you can learn things, like this fun one.
So I noticed there's these cords on the ground, like the tentacle of the UN octopus reaching into my life and into my wallet. So they're laying across the ground. Let's just see where they go. So the UN Climate Change Conference is kept snugly warm and inflated because of our old friend fossil fuels. If you see there on the sign, it says that these generators run off diesel fuel.
The pandemic canceled the annual global warming conference last year. You'd think they'd just have stuck with Zoom or Skype, electronic meetings. But you see, they love travel and they love to meet in person like we all do, like all humans do. We don't want to live our entire lives in front of a screen. At least most of us don't. We want human interaction. We crave it. No vax passports, no masks. And lucky for the United Nations jet set, all of those rules have been relaxed just for the fancy class at this giant convention in Glasgow, Scotland. Seriously, I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound, as they would say in the UK. Here's Prince Charles. He travels by private jet, who has a vast estate, a huge staff, lives, you know, like a king. But he's saying that we have to wage a military-style campaign to transform the economy, and by we he means you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my plea today is for countries to come together to create the environment that enables every sector of industry to take the action required. We know this will take trillions, not billions of dollars. We also know that countries, many of whom are burdened by growing levels of debt, simply cannot afford to go green. Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector, with trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders. It offers the only real prospect of achieving fundamental economic transition.
Yeah, it's not just that he's a hypocrite flying in private jets while telling you to live smaller. What is a nonpartisan prince, a man who would be king, doing weighing in on political matters? Didn't the Queen fire Prince Harry for less? What a disgrace Charles is. I hope the Queen lives to be 120. Anyway, in Glasgow, they've gone this year, tens of thousands of them. And while we didn't send Sheila Gunn-Reid this year, we sent our friend Lewis Brackpool, our new British reporter, who's already getting the hang of it. I mean, do you think a single other journalist there would tell this story?
So let's do net zero.
That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.